2, 1.
Welcome to Actionable Intelligence. I'm Eric Greitens. I'm honored to be with you tonight, and as you know, this is the show that respects your intelligence. We honor you as a citizen, and we bring you the facts that a lot of the mainstream media simply aren't willing to cover. Just yesterday, the Republican Party in Arizona was granted access to over 2,000 votes in Maricopa County after they found multiple issues in an initial batch of just 100 ballots. In that batch of 100 ballots, they found mistakes, and in a pattern you've seen repeated many times, all of the mistakes benefited Joe Biden. We've covered here the sworn testimony of hundreds of affidavits of people who say that they witnessed electoral fraud. But what I want to do today is take a step backward and look at some of the numbers. Use your own common sense and ask yourself, does this make sense? Take a look here at this video from Trump 2020 strategic advisor Steve Cortes.
Continuing with the theme of the improbability of Biden's supposed win. He only won 1 out of every 6 counties in America, 524 of them. That is 350 fewer counties than Barack Obama won in 2008. Now, is it possible to win the presidency with that few counties? It is, but you have to run up the score in the most populous ones. Yesterday, I showed you that in the top 3 counties in America, in fact, the president outperformed versus 2016 in Los Angeles County, in Chicago's Cook, and in Houston's Harris. Now let's look at New York City. The boroughs are their own counties. In Manhattan, the president picked up 7,000 votes and a substantial 5% on margin versus 2016. The Bronx, 20,000 votes, 7% on margin. Queens, working class Queens, over 40,000 net votes and 8% on margin. As you can see, the president is outperforming in the biggest metro area in America. So it really strains belief that Biden outperformed only in the metro areas of the swing states. One last point here, which I find fascinating. Manhattan is half white. The Bronx, only 9% white. Note that the president did well in both relative to 16, but did better in the Bronx. Proof positive that he is building, that we as a movement are building a multiracial, multi-ethnic workers' America First movement.
Well, joining us now is the man who made that video, Steve Cortes. Steve, thanks so much for joining us today.
You bet, thanks.
Steve, I want to start here. You've looked at the numbers and you've looked at them across the country. First, just give us your big picture analysis for our viewers. What's the most important thing that you've discovered and that you're seeing?
Sure. And Eric, just as a quick by way of background, in terms of my bio, the reason I'm taking this approach of the statistical improbability of a supposed Biden win is I spent 25 years on Wall Street, and my main job there as a strategist for some of the biggest hedge funds in the world was to assess market probability. So I did exactly these kinds of calculations for a living for 25 years. So I have that kind of mindset, and I hope I have some credentials. I'm applying those same principles to this election because even election night, I was at Trump campaign headquarters just outside the nation's capital in Arlington, Virginia. And as we saw the returns change into the wee hours of the morning, what struck me immediately was this is improbable to the point of being impossible. Now, that was just my gut at that point telling me, but I think my gut has been proven correct because the numbers bear that out. And I've made a lot of these videos. I've written a lot of articles about the statistical improbability. To me, though, Eric, to answer your question, the most significant argument against a supposed Biden win, and I think there's a lot of them, but the most significant is the complete lack or almost complete lack of vetting of mail-in votes. And what I mean by that is the rock bottom rejection rate. And let me be specific here and put numbers behind it, because again, I'm a numbers guy. I don't like to just sloganeer. And I'll give you 2 states specifically. The second worst state in this regard was Georgia. So typically in most elections in Georgia and elsewhere, the rejection rate in a normal year where you don't have a ton of mail-in ballots, just standard mail-in ballots, rejection rate is typically about 1%. For first-time mail-in ballots, it's about 3% historically. People just tend to make mistakes, or they're not valid voters, they're not legal voters, they're not registered, they moved, whatever. In this election in Georgia, even though we had, of course, an absolute surge of mail-in voting, 6 times the normal, 6 times 2016, the rejection rate there went from the standard 1% in 2016 all the way, it went from 3% there in 2016, it went all the way down to 0.24%. So literally 1/12 the level of rejections, even though the volume surged and the first time volume massively surged. If anything, if it were a valid, real scrutiny applied to these ballots, we believe the number should have gone up up the percentage that were rejected. Instead, the number plummeted. It's even worse in Pennsylvania. The number of rejected ballots there, 0.03%. 0.03. Their last time it was 1%. So that is 1/30th the level of rejected ballots in Pennsylvania. What that tells us, I think, Eric, statistically speaking, is that there was no scrutiny at all. There was no validation. There was no verification. And what that means constitutionally, and this is what our Trump campaign legal team is working so hard on, that means that you effectively created two classes of voters. People who showed up in person, who presented themselves, who presented identification, who presented a signature. 3 levels of verification to make sure they are legal, valid voters. And then this entire mass of millions of votes that are completely unsubstantiated. And again, that's not my opinion. We know that based on the numbers. To create 2 classes of voters is unconstitutional. It violates the 14th Amendment. It violates equal protection. To me, among the many legal challenges that we're mounting, this is the most significant legal challenge to these results as stated.
Awesome. And Steve, one of the things that I really appreciate about what you do, and I know that our viewers do, is that you dig into the numbers and you present very clear facts. Could you talk with our viewers about what you've discovered about bellwether counties in the country? First, give them a brief explanation of what a bellwether county is, and then what happened in the 2020 election, please.
Absolutely. So I'm doing a lot of county work as well. And thank you for showing that video of New York, where I point out that you can win with only winning 1/6 of the counties in the United States, as Joe Biden did, but you have to run up the score then in the very populous counties, places like Los Angeles, which is far and away the biggest county in America, twice as big as the second biggest county, which is Cook. Only here's the problem with that. The president actually outperformed. Now, he didn't come close to winning Los Angeles County, but he did quite a lot better than he did in 2016. He gained 500,000 new voters in Los Angeles County, and he gained 4% on margin compared to 2016. So my point is, the idea that Joe Biden won the presidency at the county level, again, the statistics tell otherwise. And to your point about bellwether counties, there are 19 counties in this country considered bellwethers because they basically always get it right, or almost always. These counties have voted correctly for the winning presidential candidate since 1980, these 19 counties. Now, this in and of itself, Eric, does not prove anything. But again, when you line this up with all the other statistical evidence, it creates a scenario that is so improbable as to be impossible that Joe Biden actually won. Of these 19 counties that have had it right since 1980, 18 of them voted for President Trump, and most of them by substantial margins. Trump didn't squeak it out. Okay, he won by double digits in 18 of these 19 counties, and yet somehow he lost the presidency. There's one county in particular, Vigo County in Indiana. It is the most predictive county in all of America. It's only gotten one election right in the last century. And even that one you can kind of forgive because in 1952, they voted for Adlai Stevenson, who was from Illinois. It borders Illinois. So they voted to some extent for their native son over Eisenhower. They got that one wrong. Otherwise, they've been perfect for a century. President Trump won Vigo County by 15%. And again, in isolation, that doesn't prove anything. But when we look at it in the totality of the statistical evidence, I think the case is absolutely compelling that President Trump won the legal vote.
Yeah, and again, these are counties that voted for Barack Obama in 2008, voted for Barack Obama in 2012, voted for Donald Trump in 2016. These are counties that historically got it right. There's 19 of them, and 18 of them went for President Trump. Now turning also to House races, I think that the Cook Political Report had something like 27, you'll know the exact numbers, 27 toss-up House races. What happened in those races?
No, you're exactly right. It's 27. What happened? Well, guess what? We went 27 for 27. So this is also part of the improbability of a Biden win, is the fact that the America First movement, the Republican Party, did so well at so many levels that it seems, again, improbable to the point of impossibility that President Trump did not also win. All 27 of the battleground House races, according to the Cook Political Report, which, if anything, by the way, leans a little bit left, not trying to do President Trump any favors, but of their identified races, every single one of them broke in favor of the Republicans. It's rare in politics to have that kind of a sweep, to go 27 for 27. The GOP did. And mind you, it would be one thing if the president weren't popular with his party, because then maybe you can make that case of, okay, a lot of Republicans came out and supported these congressional candidates, but they didn't like their president. Well, That's not the case here. This is a man with 95% support among Republicans. He's probably the most popular politician within his party in history, or at least in decades in the United States. So this too, and we can also look similar story at the state house level. The Democrats really believed that they could flip 4 or 5 state house chambers around the country. They believed they were vulnerable. None of that happened. The Republicans did not lose one, and in fact, flipped three in favor of the Republicans. So there was an absolute red wave. There was an America First triumph on November 3rd at every level except for the presidency. And to get back to the presidency too, in terms of the video that you first showed, what's so important is we are to believe, if we believe that Joe Biden won, we are to believe that he outperformed massively only in the metro areas, only in the swing states. In other words,
let's hit
Detroit,
that.
Atlanta. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that's such an important point, because what you're saying is he did better in LA, he did better in Chicago, he did better in Houston, he did better in these big metro areas around the country, the president did, but only in the swing state metro areas, you're saying that you actually saw a difference. We've just got about 30 seconds left, Steve. Go ahead.
No, exactly. And it's very, very hard to believe. For example, Chicago and Milwaukee are almost next to each other. The fact that the president in deeply blue Chicago outperformed, but then massively underperforms in Milwaukee, and Milwaukee has 84% turnout, 84%. We're really supposed to believe that. Again, it strains credibility. It's improbable to the point where I believe it's impossible. It's part of the reason why we are fighting so hard to try to secure what we believe is the legal vote victory of President Trump.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your analysis. We appreciate you bringing the facts and the numbers to our viewers, which are so often ignored by the mainstream media. Folks, that's Steve Cortes. We're going to be right back in just a minute. Stay with us.